Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, everyone's favorite internet mercenary. And now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I was going to do a totally different video today. I was actually thinking of covering a video that Vitruvian Physique did, but something bigger came up. You know, I talked a couple times in the past, it's been a little while, a couple weeks now, with the whole Aragon fiasco. Apparently Deadspin ran an article on it, and everyone's talking about it again. It's all over my social media, different coaches and people I know, they're discussing it. It's a big topic again in the community. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. We're going to skin up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. So on a side note, I was completely unaware who the primary woman involved in all this was. I actually didn't know who she was. I'd never heard of her, but I knew of her online handle, which is interesting. I did not know it was SciBabe, who actually I am somewhat familiar with. I just didn't piece together her real name or the face or anything in the other situation with Alan, with that being her. Again, that goes to show us sometimes we don't even know who different people are. We just see their handle, we see their work, and give it a nod, and move on without really knowing anything about who they are. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Don't think that even matters. I actually think she's got a pretty decent page. So, all of that aside, the problem we're running into is, all this is coming out. I think what a lot of people are discussing here is like it's polarized, at least like the whole evidence-based online fitness world. It's polarizing coaching. And what's happening here is that there's something of a false narrative being created. And it's interesting because I'm going to fall into the other end technically. What you're seeing is that you're seeing the people who are basically forming a lynch mob mentality. It's turned into kind of a witch hunt, this big crusade. And in typical social justice warrior fashion, what they've more or less done is that if you don't agree with our extreme perspective of this, then you're obviously on the opposite end. People don't seem to understand that there are different shades of gray on topics. In other words, there are different shades of when we can agree something is wrong, we can disagree on how wrong it is, we can disagree on how it should be handled, and that doesn't put you on the opposite side. And what's interesting is that what I'm seeing is I have people on my friends list and stuff who are on both sides, and I'm watching the debate happen on both sides. And what I'm seeing happening, you're seeing a lot of people over kind of in the whole social justice crusade of it who are like saying, there's tons of people coming out supporting him. They're supporting what he did. And then I go look at the people who they're in some cases accusing of it, banning them, blocking them for supporting it, who are still against it. In other words, it's this typical extreme, and you see this in social justice circles, of if you don't agree with our exact narrative of it, you're on the opposite end and you're supporting something, right? Something we disagree with. If you don't disagree with it in the exact way that we do, you're in support of it. And they're actually honestly thinking it's that way, when the truth is, hell, I'm in the other end. I think they've gone too far with it. I don't support it. I think it was wrong. Right? I believe as a gentleman myself that Alan's actions, from what we can determine, what he definitely seems to have done, very inappropriate, unethical, has no place in a professional environment. And quite frankly, the people who banned him from speaking at their events was a smart thing to do. Let's not even talk about morally right. Let's talk about from a business perspective. You have a person who's got multiple accusations of sexual harassment and everything else as a keynote speaker, and you keep inviting him to events, and now it's out there publicly, and he harasses someone, and your venue gets sued for it. That's I mean, from a business perspective, they have to do that, and you can't fault them for that, right? I mean, whether he's even really guilty of it or not. At a certain point, man, I mean, people who are hosting these events have to weigh that out and go, we don't really know if you're guilty or not. We can't take the financial risk. And that's business, guys. That's how it is. That is business. And, from a business perspective, you cannot blame those venues for banning him. You really can't. We don't even need to slap a morality on it. We can slap a price tag on that. That's just good business practice. To say, sorry, bro, we can't do this. And you can't knock them for that. You can't knock them for that. Now, when it comes to the whole situation, again, here's what we come down to. Weight of evidence. If people are acting like this is something that's gone to trial, and it's like this big public jury, right? He's being judged in the public eye completely and suffering enormous consequences for it. Instead of it being handled in any sort of legal manner, people looking at it from that perspective, and I think that's a problem. I think the whole mob justice thing, I think it's problematic. And when I say that, I'm not even saying he's innocent, because I'm inclined to believe that he's not. You know, just based upon what I'm seeing, what I've seen from the different parties involved. You know, if you were to ask me if I had to make a choice right now, did he do this or not, I'm going to say he probably did it. You know, it's just, that's the reasonable conclusion I'm reaching looking at it. But that's called preponderance of the evidence. You know, based upon just a preponderance of the evidence, which means what something is more likely than not. In other words, that's oftentimes what's used like in civil trials. They use preponderance of the evidence, not reasonable doubt, not shadow. That's preponderance of the evidence. If you got to pick a side, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to look at the women who came out. I'm going to look at his stance and the way he reacted to it. And sorry, his reaction is just not one of an innocent person. You know, let's just call it like it is. He's not behaving in a way that I think is conducive with that. And I think they're behaving in a way that's conducive of someone who feels they've been wronged. So, you know, if I had to look at that and say, okay, who am I inclined to believe? I'm inclined to believe them. Yeah, I just realistically am. But here's our problem, you know, are men falsely accused of this sort of stuff today? Can it be done for political gain? Can it be done for social gain? Can it be done for financial gain? Absolutely. And we always need to be leery of that. That's why you know, you got to step back and look at this stuff with a critical eye. But, I mean, I look at it with a critical eye, and I look at the way that he reacted. That's not how an innocent man reacts. I look at that and say, if I was in his situation and someone accused me of something like that and I didn't do it, I wouldn't behave the way that he did. I'd be insulting them after that. I would be straight up like, bitch, I didn't do any of that. You can go F yourself. F you. That would be my response. I'd be like, oh, hell, I'd call them a bitch too. Because they falsely accused me of something, then we got a problem. Yeah, I'm going to get belligerent. Because that's what happens. That when you are falsely accused of something, you get belligerent. As a man, I know I do. That's when I'm likely to lose my cool. You know, I didn't see someone who feels like they've been really falsely accused. That's not the reaction. That's not the reaction I expect. His reaction is someone in kind of damage control mode, you know, panic mode. You know, and the women are being pretty consistent. So, you know, again, if I look at it and say, is he probably have done what he's been accused of? Yeah. I mean, let's just be reasonable. Yeah. What they're saying sounds believable. It sounds believable, and he's not defending himself very well. But here's the thing, guys. That's public opinion, right? I'm going to form my own opinion on that. And I'm going to say, yeah, Alan, that's not cool, bro. You're a little bit of a sleazebag. I like you and I like your work, but you're kind of a sleazebag, bro. I mean, you know, that's the way I got to call it. But here's the problem we run into. The problem we run into. Because none of us are calling for sanctions. None of us are screaming, this is sexual assault and he's the evilest thing ever and, you know, kill all the men. Because we're not screaming that, and we're not just totally disavowing him and saying we're going to delete every aspect of his work. And all these people who've rallied to this crusade, a lot of us who are like, okay, yeah, man, I mean, he's going to suffer some blowback for this. He should be criticized for this. The women, if he did this to them, and it appears to be the case, they have every right to be confrontational about it. That's totally justified, you know? I mean, someone wrongs you like that, they harass you sexually, they grope you, and you want to get up and say, hey, that's not cool, I'm going to be getting the news for it. More power to you. I don't think that's unreasonable. But it's this massive hate campaign that he's being demonized, almost like he's Hitler or something, by a lot of these people. And that anyone who stands up for any aspect of him or saying that he doesn't need to be pretty much crucified for it is suddenly supporting it. When it's like, what? No, a lot of us who are on the other end saying, okay, guy's been more than punished. His career is over. He's been publicly shamed. That's enough. Guy's been publicly shamed. All right, that's pretty fair. right? Let's look at it this way. These women were basically shamed. That's what it is, right? It's an attack on their self-esteem. It's an attack on their humanity. That's what it is. You know, that's what sexual harassment, like, it is dehumanizing, right? It's shaming a person. He's now been shamed in return, right? He got a little bit of his own medicine. That's justice. That's fair. That's fair. Hell, he's lost money. He's lost business. It's hurt him financially. It's hurt his reputation. He's been shamed. Someone like me, someone like some of the other people who are observing, say, okay, yeah, that's reasonable. He's been reasonably punished. He got a little taste of his own medicine. That's enough. Move on. Right? He got a taste of his own medicine. Other men have reprimanded him. Women have reprimanded him, saying, yeah, bro, that's not cool. You're kind of a douchebag. You know? That's good enough. And that's what most of us would say. But some people will take that as, oh, you're supporting and justifying it. And that's the worst part, you know, is you have all these other people who are jumping up, boy, it's sexual assault. Well, we're getting into a tricky issue. And a lot of people, this is where it gets confusing. You have so many people who are overseas. They're overseas. They're in different countries. People need to understand, when you start talking sexual assault, you're talking about felony level criminal stuff you go to prison for. The other problem, these are all unarmed societies who are discussing it and calling it that. Their consequences for your behavior are different in their countries. This has happened in the United States. I understand they're both American citizens, and this happened on U.S. soil. All right, we are in a different world, and here's where it matters. People say, well, you know, you can call it, but it's sexual. Well, it's not sexual assault. Because you know the problem with labeling something that's wrong, it's unethical, it's immoral, as an actual assault, and particularly when you throw the sexual in there, that's a felony level assault. You know why that matters from a perspective in the United States? This is why it matters. That's why the difference between sexual harassment and sexual assault matter, because the use of force in which you may use in response to prevent it is totally different. This isn't Australia. This isn't Canada. This isn't the United Kingdom. In most of the United States, and people need to understand, sexual assault, self-defense is defined differently in different parts of the U.S. We have different state laws. But in most places, including where I live, you can shoot to stop sexual assault. This is an important distinction. In other words, the amount of force that you can use and how you can respond without going to jail yourself to what's happening to you is a very, very important distinction between the two. It's not a minor matter. Yeah, for social justice, where you're, oh, it's evil, it's just as wrong, it's rape. Well, essentially what you're saying, you're trying to throw terms out there that are actual violence, right? That people are committing violent acts against other people. Well, this is America. This is, in many cases, depending on the circumstances, how you can legally respond to violence. You understand why this matters? It's not a minor point. And that's the other point that I and even several women I've seen in these discussions raise on the other end. Well, this is a major point, because anyone who has truly been violated in some way, and I was during my childhood, I admit that, come to terms with that. I can be honest about that. That to even try to put it in that category, I think is absolutely insulting. I think it's belittling, and I think that's dehumanizing to people who have experienced the real thing. All right, harassment, even some drunken groping, it's wrong. Okay, it's wrong. It's not right, and if you're doing it, it doesn't make you a particularly good person. Okay, but there's an enormous difference between that and throwing that word assault in. All right, there's a world of difference, and particularly when you start dealing with an armed society, you start dealing with a society in which violence can be used to counter violence in many situations legally. All right, that's not a term you need to be throwing around that loosely, because if you say it's sexual assault, then you are saying she can draw out her .45 and dump a magazine in him, is what you're saying. That potentially she could legally get away with that. You understand the difference here? This is not Australia. This is not New Zealand. This is not the United Kingdom. This happened inside the United States, where a very large percentage of the population legally carry. Okay? All right, this is a big deal. And that's the first thing I would say, not to get on my high horse here, but I would say to a lot of women who talk about in the United States, not anywhere else, it's purely this country. If you make a big deal and you want to talk about sexual assault, I would ask you, what are you doing to prevent it? Do you carry? Are you trained? I mean, that's how you prevent that. Real easy solution. Just throwing that out there. That's a real good way to stop sexual assault. It's very effective. I think that's your best line of defense right there. If someone truly is a predator and they're going to commit that act against you, then by all means, do what you got to do. But, that's a totally different tangent, isn't it? But, again, we have laws in place for all of that. So, again, it's this distinction being made, and to the point to where you're seeing people on the other side saying that some of the coaches and other coaches I know are saying this is harassment. It doesn't appear to be actual assault. It's still wrong. And then they're jumping up saying they're defending him. Like, are you serious? Are you serious? Come on. All right, everyone out there that I know of, even people who are being accused of defending him, and some people are throwing me in that category, we're all disavowing his actions. We're all saying it's wrong. We're all saying it's inappropriate. We're all saying this has no place in a professional environment at all, and none of us are even saying these venues are wrong for banning him. It's we're not defending him. At least even the coaches I've seen, some of these coaches and other people that I see out there in the community are being banned from pages for even taking that stance. By these people, a lot of people who themselves are complete hypocrites on this stuff. A lot of these are people who their own outlooks and interactions and con artistry and treatment of women and everything isn't particularly good either. They don't have a moral high ground. They don't have a moral high ground to be standing on. A whole hell of a lot of them don't. Why aren't people calling them out on their stuff then? They're going to jump right in these conversations, and why aren't these other people saying, well, hey, you're kind of a dirtbag yourself? Well, how have you treated women? But because they're picking up their pet cause and jumping on the crusade, they're just willing to overlook any of their indiscretions, right? That's how it works. It's how it works when you jump on that bandwagon. And that's exactly what it is. It's jumping on a bandwagon. And you know what? There's a few individuals out there who I think stand to profit in terms of their outreach and their finances by being on that bandwagon. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say why. I think there's a few cases out there. Yeah, they might be taking a morally appropriate stance on the topic, but for some of them, there's something in it for them. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.